Welcome to Hear Here, the podcast where you get a VIP behind-the-scenes look at the broad collective of music venues and festivals that make Buffalo the music destination it is. Today we visit an architectural gem, the Art Deco, Saarinen-designed Kleinhans Music Hall, one of the absolute best concert halls in the country and home to the Buffalo Philharmonic Orchestra. This episode showcases the rich history of this historic building and its connection to the community. First up is Jess Basil, the manager of Kleinhans Music Hall, to talk about the original intention of the hall and her vision for its future.
Jess, it's so great to see you today. Thank you for taking time out to talk to us today about what a great place Kleinhans is. I know you have a lot of things going on, and we're going to talk about what makes you so busy here. But Kleinhans is such a rich history and is so important to the area. Why is it so important to the story of Buffalo?
I mean, Kleinhans opened in 1940, and the intent was to be for the use and enjoyment of the people of the city of Buffalo. And that alone says so much.
And being on Symphony Circle, it's such a central part of the city and such a special place. What makes this such a great place to showcase classical music to the community?
This was originally built to be the home of the Buffalo Philharmonic. Fast forward how many years later, and here we are. And, you know, they built it with acoustics first. We are just such a musically rich community, and, you know, music feeds the soul. Mm-hmm. You need the bread and flowers in life, and Kleinhans really provides the flowers.
What type of place is it for people that come here and experience a show, or for the musicians that are performing on stage? Do you get feedback about that?
Oh yeah, it's really exciting to hear both sides of it, of course, but artists, particularly if they haven't been here before and they walk in, and not only is it just visually stunning, but hearing the acoustics, it's just such a treat. Especially when we're performing in this room, in the Mary Seton room, we have to tell drummers, like, go light, because otherwise you're just, it hits you so hard in, like, the best way.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of musicians are used to performing in spaces that maybe aren't designed with acoustics first.
You get to interact with a lot of different artists, musicians, speakers, people that come to Kleinhans. Mm-hmm. If you could explain the level or what it feels like to be working with JoAnn Falletta and the Buffalo Philharmonic, what that means to the music community, even on a larger level outside of Buffalo, what would you say?
I can speak from my personal experience. The first time I saw a show, the first time I saw the Philharmonic, I just was blown away. And I had just moved back home after college, and I had been to Kleinhans before, and I remember how beautiful it was. But, you know, something about experiencing that concert, and I was, you know, way back in the balcony, and I just still, it brought me to tears.
Yeah.
Truly. And it was an amazing experience. And, you know, one of the perks of the job, of course, is getting to, you know, watch rehearsals or go to as many shows as I can. And it's still such a treat to experience that many musicians on stage in such a beautiful space with the acoustics that are perfect. Like, it's, you know, you can't go anywhere and experience something like that.
What are some of the things that you have going on or that you've been excited about that are coming to Kleinhans or that you've experienced here outside of the BPO?
Yeah, gosh, there's so many. Last year, we started a Global Groove series, and where we wanted to bring different types of music to the hall and, you know, elevate these different performers that are just incredibly talented, and, you know, start pushing beyond just the typical patron that attends the Philharmonic. Mm-hmm. And this year, we're really excited. We're doing that series downstairs in the Blue Room, and that's going to be really loungy and intimate, and you know, just a different way to experience music at Kleinhans.
Now, you mentioned the Blue Room. So for people that haven't been here, explain, this is a complete, it's almost like a center. There's different rooms, there's different performances that happen. Can you explain these spaces and what they're used for?
The hall was built with 3 performance spaces. The one we're in now, the Mary Seton room, which is a recital hall, and then Livingston, which is another recital space. That one is currently, we use it for more behind the scenes practices and stuff like that. And then this blue room I mentioned is a new space. It is the restaurant space downstairs, but we are just activating it in a different way. So the main hall seats about 2,400. The great thing with that space is we can either decide to close off the balcony and do a floor-only show, or use the entire hall. So if an act comes to us and they're like, hey, we could sell, 1,400 tickets, great, let's do it. If they're like, we have, 2,400, we can fill no problem, we can do the whole space. And, it's great sitting in there, especially for, rock shows. It's interesting because you're not at an arena where a lot of times it's so loud you can't even think. So you're experiencing rock music, and it's just acoustically perfect. So it's a really exciting space to be in.
What are some of the big names that stand out that people still talk about here at Kleinhans?
Going, way back, Martin Luther King famously gave a talk here, and people still talk about that. Of course, what an honor to have him here. The Grateful Dead performed here, and Deadheads will know that famously they recorded every performance, right? And there's just a wealth of Grateful Dead concerts out there, except the one that is here at Kleinhans. It is a missing concert, and we have put out rewards for people to try to, if they have it, bring it.
Somebody has that. I mean, I think that anybody that's a Deadhead has, the shows exist somewhere. That's crazy.
I know. It's like the one, of course it's here that we don't have it.
So being in the community around a lot of great venues and great musical performance spaces, we just did an episode on Pausa Art House that is, right around the corner. What is your vision for this space and its place in the community? Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, we'll always be the home of the Buffalo Philharmonic, of course. But beyond that, there's so much space and time outside of when they're rehearsing or performing that we can use the space. And, my vision is really kind of going back to our roots of being a space for the use and enjoyment of the people of Buffalo. But music, bringing in all sorts of music. We have so much local musical talent, so trying to bring them in more. And, we're right in between New York City and Toronto, and trying to get bigger acts in and have them stop in Buffalo for a night. So it's baby steps, but I've got a lot of vision for the place. And, you do mention you're such a part of the music community. How would you explain the music community here in Buffalo, and Buffalo as now a destination spot? Yeah, I mean, the music in the city, you can't leave your house without seeing another concert that's going on, or there's just, it's everywhere, Nietzsche's and Pausa and Sportsman's and Babeville and Town, it's just really exciting. And beyond just the acts that are coming to town, the local music scene is so rich. And especially working here, I'm meeting so many musicians and getting tuned into even more shows that I didn't know were happening. And how lucky. Yeah. Why is this such a great place for live music?
Yeah. So, I mean, beyond just the acoustics and the number of spaces that we have, depending on the type of concert we want to host, just location-wise, we're right in Allentown, right in the West Side. A lot of people can walk or bike here, and it's really involved with everything else that's going on in the city. I keep going back to the Philharmonic because that is such a huge piece of who we are. And, outside of that, we're kind of building that as we go, and we're kind of waking up to how much music there is and how much more we can use the space to elevate local musicians. And so we're kind of building that as we go.
Yeah, that's exciting. There is a lot of young talent in classical music in this area, so it'll be exciting to see what happens at Kleinhans, because it's always such a great experience here.
Yeah.
And we will be talking to a fan, and we'll be talking to JoAnn. So thank you so much for taking the time today, and we look forward to see everything that happens.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah.
Thanks, Jess.
As we've said, the resident musicians are none other than the members of the Buffalo Philharmonic Orchestra. It was a thrill to sit down with their leader, Maestro JoAnn Falletta, the music director of the BPO and one of the best ambassadors we have for Buffalo.
JoAnn, I'm so honored to be talking to you today in this beautiful space, in this beautiful room. And you have such a role here at Kleinhans, but also in the world of classical music. How does Kleinhans enhance that and the genre's impact on people?
Well, can I tell you how much we love Kleinhans? I mean, this is from me and from all the musicians. Kleinhans is one of the great halls in our country, and we get to live in it every day. So you can imagine what that means. It's very precious to us. And we have grown up in this hall. This orchestra has been here since 1940, playing every day in this hall. So the sound of the orchestra is actually the sound of Kleinhans. You know, that's the big instrument. That houses all of us. We're inside that instrument. And the way we play, the kind of depth of sound we have, the sort of way we think about color and blending comes from being in this really tremendous hall.
You have such impressive programming here, and with the BPO and at Kleinhans. Does the history and the space, is that involved in the selections in your programming?
Absolutely. I mean, the history of it always makes us remember that we were created for the people of this region, not by a wealthy board or wealthy person. We were created to do good and to belong to these people who live here. And I think that informs what we do. We do a little bit of everything, a lot of everything, and really, from concerts, I mean, serious classical concerts, to movies accompanied by the orchestra, to concerts for young people, to concerts for special audiences, to holiday concerts, to pops concerts, to rock concerts. I mean, this music is always going on, and our musicians do it all, and that's a big testament to the great American orchestra, with which they can play everything well.
I know it's important for you to have that programming and to continue. How will you expand on that? What are the things that are always important for you to include in programming and in the future of Kleinhans?
Well, as we go forward, we always think of people. I mean, that's what it's all about. People of all types. It doesn't have to be the person who comes in for a Mahler symphony. We continue to do everything we can to reach them, to grow, to incorporate new voices, you know, composers that have been unjustly neglected or are just coming into their own now, people, living composers, and all kinds of concerts going on here with really great joy.
Now, you yourself and the BPO have received accolades, Grammy-awards. How do you think that has helped to elevate and showcase the great things that are going on here in Buffalo to the rest of the world?
You know, Buffalo has always been an artistic city. Always. And I knew that coming here 25 years ago, that I was coming to a special place, and that the orchestra was always highly regarded by our peer orchestras in this country. So there is something really special about Buffalo, and the hall is a manifestation of that.
What role does the Buffalo Chamber Music Society play at Kleinhans? And they perform in this room that we're in, right?
They absolutely do, and they are so revered. You know that it's one of the oldest chamber music societies in our country, playing every year, bringing in great artists from all over the world. And this is a beautiful hall, too. The Mary Seton Hall, which is created more for chamber music, is a perfect venue for them. So we're lucky we have these two halls in one great building.
You get the best of both worlds.
Yes. We like Kleinhans to be what it is at its best, a community center, mm-hmm. where people come in for a speaker. who's talking about a certain topic, or National Geographic wonderful photograph show, or they come in and graduate from Kleinhans, from the stage of Kleinhans. Almost everyone in Buffalo has graduated from the stage of Kleinhans. Weddings happen here. Large luncheons and dinners happen here. So it is a community point where people come together. Not always to listen to music, although mostly to listen to music, but to be in a beautiful space that was created for them.
And it's very magical to see you on stage and in that hall and to see the orchestra. So we feel that from the audience. How does it feel to you being on the stage and conducting
I
in the
think
space?
It feels magical for us as well, because the hall has a certain warmth to it. You know, the Saarinens talked about the hall as being a violin, the hall itself as being a violin, and as the audience sitting in the body of that violin, that huge violin. And we sit very close when we're making music. We are very close to the audience, and they're sort of wrapping their arms around us in the way that the shape of the stage is. So there are no barriers. There's no blocks between the people listening and us making music.
So you've taken on a lot of different projects. You've, different catalogs, everybody from Bob Dylan and David Bowie. And I feel like there's always tricks up your sleeve. Is there anything coming up that you would like to do, or that you would like to experiment with that you haven't gotten to do?
Well, just more of what we're doing. You know, we've started to do a series of operas here, semi-staged, because we don't have a great big stage. It was not designed for opera. This hall is so perfect for us because it was designed for orchestra concerts. But we can do opera too, and we do it in a way where the orchestra is on the stage and the singers are in front of us. So it's so dramatic and so overwhelming for the whole experience, not only of the audience, but of the people playing and singing. So we're continuing that. We're doing La Traviata this year that way.
You mentioned earlier about, in your circles and the music community, Buffalo being a known artistic place, and that led to your decision to come here. You had a lot of options. You have a great career. What are some of the things that led you to Buffalo? Obviously, the space is great too.
The hall was wonderful. The musicians were wonderful. I mean, they have always had a great reputation as being musicians who were fabulous and powerful and emotional, and they've grown even more exuberant, I think. I mean, I love that word. One of the orchestra concerts that we played, the audience member said, "Your orchestra is completely exuberant," and that's how they are. So that was a big attraction to me. The people of Buffalo, of course, I mean, they couldn't have been more welcoming. I mean, I felt almost like I'd grown up here in a year or so. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing that I love when people say, "Oh, you were born in Buffalo, weren't you?" And I wasn't, but I feel like I was because of the warmth of people here. So the environment was wonderful. And there was always this love of the arts, literature, love of theater, a love of music, a love of art in our two wonderful museums that we have. That makes it a very special place.
So when you're talking to people that might be from outside the area, but that are maybe looking to travel and explore classical music, how do you explain Kleinhans to them, and how would you encourage people to come to Kleinhans?
Well, I would encourage them to come because, first of all, it's acknowledged as one of the great American halls, and a lot of people haven't seen it. And when they see it, it's quite stunning because there's a Scandinavian simplicity to the hall. It's all wood. That must be partly responsible for the incredible sound that we have, but it's all blonde wood. It's comfortable, and the sound just swirls around you. So it is one of the most welcoming halls I think I've ever performed in or sat in. So I would encourage people to come. But then put Kleinhans and the Buffalo Philharmonic on your list, but then put the AKG and put the Birchfield and the Irish Classical, and so our Botanic Gardens. I mean, there's just one beautiful thing after the other, and people are always surprised by Buffalo. And I think it's no longer a secret. I mean, people are saying that's a wonderful city, not only to live in, but to come and visit. There's so much going on.
Well, JoAnn, you seem very lucky to have Kleinhans, but Kleinhans is very lucky to have you, and Buffalo is very lucky to have you. And I look forward to the future here at Kleinhans, but also I'm very grateful for all you've done here. So thank you for talking to us.
Thank you so much.
After talking with Jess Basil and JoAnn Falletta, I took a short tour of an archive room built on the balcony level of the main hall. It was an incredible glimpse into the rich history of the building and the generations who have enjoyed the music within these walls. Lauren Becker researched and curated this incredible exhibit, and I was excited to sit down with her for the unique perspective of a historian and fan all in one. Lauren, thank you for spending time with us today. I know you're a big fan of Kleinhans, and you also know a lot about the space. So I'm just excited to pick your brain about it. Okay. But you're a big fan as a patron here, as somebody that's attended a lot of shows. If you had to guess, how many shows have you seen here?
Oh, well, I've been really lucky because I also volunteer here.
Yeah.
So that allows me to see a lot more shows than even just buying tickets for them. But we've been here since 2005. So at least over 100 shows, I would think.
Wow.
Yeah.
What are I know it's hard to pick a favorite. This is a tough question, but what are some of your favorites or things that stand out in your memory?
One of the first things we saw was a very special version of Mozart's Requiem with the chorus, but they were doing a version to highlight that during World War II, some of the prisoners in the concentration camps who were musicians had remembered the parts that they played, and they had been able to get instruments, and they had people who could sing it as well as play it. And of course, in the concentration camp, people were dying and being killed throughout the time. So the presentation that JoAnn put together for the concert was a smaller group of musicians, a smaller chorus, and what it made it so moving, they had, artistic lighting and all that, but as they went through the Requiem, the musicians and the chorus members would just get up and walk out to symbolize the loss of the prisoners from that. So that was one of the very first concerts I saw here, and it really made an impression about what the space can do. But on the other hand, just recently we celebrated the birthday of Rachmaninoff, who is one of my favorite composers. And so we had there was a concert there where they did not only the Second Symphony, but the Second Piano Concerto all in one concert, and it was about more than I could handle. It was amazing.
Oh, I can't.
Yes, really wonderful stuff.
Did you come here as a patron and then decide you wanted to volunteer and be more involved?
I had always been coming here as a patron ever since we moved here. And then I had been working at a nonprofit and got totally burnt out and was able to leave that and just take some time off, and I needed to put myself back together again. Yeah. And for me, I grew up in a classical music household, and music has always been the thing that could hold me back together or bring me back again. So I knew with my time, I finally had time to volunteer, and it had to be with the BPO and Kleinhans. So that's how the volunteering started, and it worked. It helped me put myself back together, as I knew it would. And then I've just been volunteering ever since, and even have come on payroll to help a little bit out here and there, setting up Christmas decorations. Some people might recognize me from the parking lot crew, doing setup in this beautiful room. So it's just it's become my happy place. So anything I can do to be here, I kind of do that.
And you know so much about the history of this place, and we can even see that in some of your work here, including the museum.
Yes,
here, right?
Yes. So the hall opened in 1940, and we were able to celebrate the 75th anniversary in 2015, and they were able to get a grant from the Community Foundation for Greater Buffalo to do an exhibit space upstairs, and I was just in the right place at the right time. So when I was doing research for that exhibit is when I started to learn even more about the hall and what a really special and important and significant place this has been for the people of Buffalo.
And in that history, there is also, it shows what this venue can be and what this venue has been and the types of events.
Right.
Historical events.
Exactly. So obviously the music is the first thing that people think of. It's Kleinhans Music Hall. But it's owned by the city. So Ed and Mary Seton Kleinhans donated the money to build the building, and then stipulated that it would be given to the city, so this music hall belongs to everyone.
Yeah.
And with that in mind, anybody can rent space in it. All kinds of different musical acts, but also people rent the hall, they get married here. Lots of people in Buffalo have graduated here, either from high school or from college. We also have wonderful speaking events, everything from Robert F. Kennedy and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., lots of preachers. We've had lots of church services across the board of whatever religion you can imagine.
You were talking about parties that would happen here after people would get off like second shift work.
Exactly right. So Kleinhans was open, like we said, in 1940, October 12th, 1940. You know, the war production in Buffalo was just nonstop 24/7 to try to build as many planes and material for the war. So you had people working those shifts, and the regular timing of people's lives was completely messed up. So they would get off work at 2 o'clock in the morning, and that would be just like us getting off work at 5 or 6. They wanted to go do stuff. So a lot of their companies and other organizations would book the hall for swing dances. And there's some people disagree on where that word swing comes from. Why do we call it? Part of it is because there's a swing to the music rhythm, but it was also the swing shifts, the 3 to 11s who would get off and come to a dance that started at midnight, and it would go until 8 in the morning, and then maybe another dance come in at 9 o'clock in the morning and go until 1 in the afternoon.
I mean, you have pull here. Can we bring that back? I'm just like, I can just see that in this space. I think we talked to Jess Basil.
Yes, absolutely.
And one of the things that Jess did mention in the history, but I think that you can probably talk about this because of all those shows you've been to here, is this venue was created very acoustically sound.
Absolutely.
And has great acoustics.
Yes.
So how can you explain, the historical nature and the structure of the building and how it feels to be in here and experience shows?
Yeah. For people who generally have heard of Kleinhans but maybe don't live in Buffalo, if you know anything about it, you think of it as an architectural masterpiece because of good old Ilil and Eero Saarinen, who designed it, the father-son from Finland, but also an acoustical masterpiece. So, think about it. This was in the late 30s, 38, 39, when they were designing it and building it. And by that point, we had made some advances in the science of acoustics. So the acoustician, a guy named Charles Potwin, worked with the Saarinens to help turn their design, which frankly isn't really ideal for acoustics. I mean, look at this room. There's a great echo, but it also could sound like a basketball court.
Yeah.
Because there's not a whole lot of ornamentation.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of sound absorbing in materials that you can see. But Potwin worked with the Saarinens to hide acoustic absorptive material throughout the room to make sure that reverberation time was really good, in a room that was also designed to look very beautiful. So we know acoustics is interesting because it's a science, but it's also an art. And that really helps that feeling of intimacy, that great sound quality. So you really get the best of all worlds here, especially in performances that are not amplified. So like a rock concert that has lots of, it still sounds great, but all of that sound you're getting really is from the speakers. But music that's not amplified sounds incredible in these spaces and very natural. So you can really hear that bow coming across the string. You can hear the quality of those voices because the acoustics are so well, and you're very comfortable while you're listening to that experience.
So to the novice music listener, that is, the Philharmonic, or there's certain performers that there's no amplification, there's no speakers. It's the room that's amplifying that sound.
That is a really good question. Yes. When the BPO is performing, you'll see microphones hanging from the ceiling, but that's because we're recording it. In general, a concert like that is not going to be amplified.
Amazing. I'm getting chills just, hearing you talk about it.
When we moved here, we learned what an active scene Buffalo had for all different kinds of music, and I think that's why a lot of people like to come here, because you can really get a lot of great music experiences. I've been fortunate to live all over the country and in Canada a lot, probably 15 different cities, and because I love classical music, I'm always seeking out the orchestra and to hear what that's like. And I can say absolutely honesty that the quality of the BPO as it plays in this amazing building is one of the reasons we still live here. Musically, the BPO does a lot of wonderful concerts for a variety of different people who maybe might not normally think about coming to a orchestral classical concert. They do phenomenal children's programs, which means a lot to me because that's how I first started listening.
Yeah.
I remember field trips as a kid going to hear the symphony orchestra. So I'm so glad they get 40, 50,000 kids in here every year. Lots of diversity programs and busing in people from all over Western New York and even Northwestern Pennsylvania. A lot of collaborative efforts with other music groups. The very first concert we came to was Van Cliburn playing here, the magnificent pianist here, and we had the absolute 2 last corner seats on the top row in the corner of the room, and I felt like I could hear it as if he was sitting right next to me. So not only having lots of seats and a big variety and diversity of performances, but the fact that they're affordable and almost anybody can find a way to get here. Amazingly low student rates if you're a high school or a college student, and that is absolutely priceless, I think, for the city and for the people who live here. And I really love, my favorite thing is the audience is so warm, and even if it's a piece they're not familiar with, the BPO is great, and JoAnn specifically picks out newer pieces to broaden our experience. I've never been in an audience that so quickly just would leap off their feet and applaud, just as if the Bills had scored a touchdown or something, right? Or a big reception from Josh Allen, and they whistle, and it's a joyous feeling, and I just love for these musicians to feel that love, and to know that we're so happy that they're here and we appreciate their talent.
Well, I'm just so happy that we got to talk to you, and I look forward to seeing you on the audience here, and I'm going to search you out because I feel like I would want to sit next to you at a show. And then, I also look forward to possibly doing one of your tours.
Yes, yes, we're really fortunate. We're able to do tours every now and then. However long you want, I can definitely talk for a long time. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. You're such a valuable part of this, and this venue, and the fact that they have your brain here is amazing. So thank you
so much for featuring Kleinhans. Everybody come visit. Come visit.
That wraps up this episode of Hear Here. Be sure to check out more episodes on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Buffalo is a unique music destination, and we uncover it all on Hear Here. This program is produced by Buffalo Toronto Public Media for Visit Buffalo Niagara. I'm Bentley. Thanks for listening.